Cool. All right. Okay. Which I think is kind of what we're all going to be here for a little while, right? Demos, that includes you, so you're going to be with us here for a little
I
while.
do want to extend a thank you to Callista for joining us today. I always love it when we have a little bit of a mix. So, of course, we all love Marissa.
Absolutely.
But
Right. John, it's always fun to have John on the show.
I always enjoy, but not a show passes by where I don't enjoy you banging on the table.
Oh, yes. Okay. I know. I'm
That's
putting my hands
Yeah.
down. So, but it's what we want to do, and kind of as I mentioned to you, is we just want to make sure that we offer, a lot of people in our parish the opportunity to do this. And you are Orthodox born, right? You're Greek Orthodox born,
Yes.
right? So you already know, obviously, our customs. You know the Greek drama that we love to have. You're familiar with all of that cool stuff that we do. So welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
And we'll try not to beat you up too bad here. So one of the things I wanted to speak about before we start the show really quick, I know that my parishioners have received my email. What we want to do is repeat what we did last year with the luminary bags. We're not quite through COVID yet. We're very, very close. So we had such success with the lighting of the luminary bags to represent the kind of parishioners, because they would send in their names and we'd put their name on a bag. We'd have the tea light candle, and then we processed with the epitaphio around, if you all remember that from last year. Well, we're still not at 100% yet, so we thought that we would repeat that, and we're going to extend it now, not only to the living, but also to the departed. Unfortunately, 2020 was a difficult year in terms of this parish because we had quite a few deaths, unfortunately. And so this will give us an opportunity to remember all of those names, to include my father. So I know that my mom will be sending that in to honor my dad. All right. So, and that's going to happen on Holy Friday. So Megali Paraskevi. All right. Do we have any questions?
Yes, let's get started. So our first question is from Nicholas Carvelis from Wisconsin. He has two questions.
Oh, wow, Wisconsin. Oof.
The first one, is it appropriate to do the sign of the cross when I pass by any Christian church or only an Orthodox church?
So that's a pretty cool question. So, and again, sometimes from ultra Orthodox, you may get a different answer, but the answer that the seminary would give you is that, as we say in many of the prayers that we have, the Holy Spirit fills all things. So we don't believe that the grace of God is bounded just by the walls of this church. So in fact, God is present in all Christian churches, and it is absolutely appropriate that when you pass by any Christian church, that you would do the sign of the cross. Absolutely, that's a great point to bring out.
I have a spin-off question.
Okay.
When you enter an Orthodox church, at what point is it appropriate to do the sign of the cross?
So there's nothing written, okay, but practice is that as soon as you enter into the church, depending upon the type of church that they have, some churches, all churches have the narthex. The narthex is that entrance, right? Some churches, though, they have an exo-narthex. They have just something outside, and this is where they will put the icon stand for the icon of the day. So either way, when you come into the church and you encounter that first icon, that's when you would make the sign of the cross, because you're going to reverence that icon. So that's when you would typically make the sign of the cross as you're coming in for a service or something like that.
Okay. Our second question from Nicholas Carvelis is, do you have any advice for when you're praying and your mind starts to wander?
Oh, geez, yeah, you're talking about me, basically. So thank you, Nick. That is exactly who I am. Normally speaking, the problem there is the prayer's too long, because your mind can only stay focused, right? We don't live in a monastery, right? So our mind's got to, you got studies on your mind. I'm thinking about who I'm gonna visit in the hospital, and at the end of the day, your mind hasn't quite unwound yet. So as St. Paul says, everything is askesis, everything is exercise. So what I would do is I would start small. So maybe what I would do is I would just do the Trisagion prayer, Holy God, Holy Mighty, Holy Immortal, and maybe like a 5-minute prayer. Everybody can stay focused for that amount of time. And then as you get experience, you'll know when your mind's clear. Like maybe you won't do that. Maybe you won't do that just before bed because you're too tired. Maybe you'll do that in the morning, or maybe you'll do that maybe just before you have dinner at a time when you feel that you're kind of calmed down, you have 5 or 10 minutes to be alert. So start small. That's typically how people get into trouble because they try to read the 50th Psalm, then the 5 Psalms during the Ortho service that we have, and it's too much. We just can't pay attention that long. Unless it's cartoons, then I can pay attention for quite a long time.
Okay. So our next question is from someone named VDMA LCMS. They say, I am a returning Lutheran. Does the Roman Catholic Church recognize the legitimacy of Orthodox bishops?
Yes, absolutely. They do recognize the ordination process or the enthronement process for a bishop. So yes, our bishops are recognized, and probably the most obvious example of that is the fact that the Pope officially greets the patriarch as the patriarch. So he recognizes him and he invites him in and speaks of him as a brother. So absolutely, the Orthodox do recognize all of our ordinations as sacramental and valid.
This isn't scrolling.
Is that?
It got stuck.
Can we see if that'll work there? We've got a scroll issue here.
A scroll issue?
Got stuck at the bottom.
Oh boy. Refresh your page. And I'll just jump ahead to a question by John F. Kennedy.
John F. Kennedy.
John F. Kennedy is back from the dead to ask a question.
Has come back. Okay.
Now, we're not skipping any questions. It's just one that's jumped to mind at the moment. Can thoughts be a sin?
Okay. Well, this is one of my favorites. Again, I go right by St. John Chrysostom. And what St. John Chrysostom said is, the thought is the beginning of sin. The thought is not the sin. The logismi or the focusing on the sin is the beginning of sin. The action is the sin. I love that because what it says, what St. John Chrysostom is telling us is that the demons are the ones that put the thoughts into our heads. Not every thought, okay, but those thoughts that are not glorifying God do not come from us, but they come from external. So what we are taught to do is exactly what the monks do, is that when we receive that thought, we get rid of the thought. And I'll give you a perfect example, a real life example of that. If somebody is, let's say, somebody is suffering from pornography, right? Now, online pornography, easy to do, they're by themselves and they can go online. So they think to themselves, man, oh man, I think I'm going to go to this porn site. That's not a sin. But when they think about it and they go, you know what, maybe, yeah, okay, and they start clicking on it and looking it up and everything like that, that's what St. John Chrysostom said is the beginning of sin, okay? And then actually going to the site, then obviously then that's the sin. What St. John Chrysostom is telling us is that at that moment, when that thought comes in, pick up the phone, call your friend, go out and get a pizza, see a movie, put something on TV, but don't dwell on the thought, go and do something positive. And a lot of times when I have when I've had not the pornographic encounter, but when I've had those kind of thoughts that come into my head, it is amazing how many times the phone will ring and it'll be one of my friends, or Demos will call me up and say, hey, I need you to do something. And then it gets my mind out and poof, off I go. So
Just to make it very clear, I do not call him every time I think about pornography.
no, yeah, okay, yes.
All right.
Okay, so for our next question, another one from VDMA LCMS. Does the Eastern Orthodox Church have a magisterium of some sort?
Not in the formal sense. No, we do not. What we have is then once a year we have a conclave, if you use that Roman Catholic term, of the bishops of the Orthodox Church under Constantinople that will get together and will discuss matters of faith. Now, again, because we are not an ecumenical church yet, meaning that we are that Rome is still separated from the five patriarchs, and so we cannot make any ecumenical decisions that are binding on the church, but we can discuss them. But it's more of an informal thing. And again, remember that that's just Constantinople. So, Russia has their thing that they do. The Coptics have theirs that they do. So whereas the Catholic Church can have a magisterium that speaks about, dogmatic issues, how will these be addressed? What will the catechism be that follows? Because we're not even one Orthodox church, it's very difficult to have that. So what we have is these conclaves within each Orthodox patriarchate of Alexandria, of Constantinople, of Jerusalem, so on and so forth.
Real quick, we had a question come in on Sunday's service I promised we would address. It's from Luca Martinovic. Does any Greek Orthodox Church celebrate Easter last Sunday, like the Roman Catholics and the Eastern Catholics?
Not the only reason I'm hesitating here is I was just wondering if the Coptics, because they use the term Pope for their hierarch, might celebrate it at the same time. I'd have to validate that, but other than that, I am not aware of any Orthodox church that celebrates Easter aligned with the Roman Catholic
Byzantine,
Church.
maybe?
What's that?
Byzantine?
Yes, but they're not Orthodox.
Yeah, I know.
They were
Yeah,
Orthodox,
that's what I'm
but
thinking.
the Melkites and the Marianites are a Byzantine rite, but Catholic observance. So yes, you're certainly they do celebrate, but I'd have to check on the Coptics. That's the one I'm not sure of.
Right. I'm looking for our next one.
Trench had a follow-up to John F. Kennedy's.
You're getting-
Yeah, you're getting John F. Kennedy. I mean, we'll try to collect all the presidents. So if any of you are presidents, please.
Right.
Not any of the recent ones, though. We don't need that kind of trouble. Trench asked, speaking of thoughts, as in can thoughts be a sin, can the Deil, D-E-I-L, know your thoughts or saint angels?
It's probably the devil.
The devil. Okay.
Yeah, okay, I figured. Yeah, you're right.
There, so we don't believe that the devil can read your thoughts. The devil understands your actions as just as if you got to know me or I got to know, the more we know each other, the more you kind of know what I'm thinking and you know what pushes my buttons and you know how you could influence me if you had to, right? But you don't read my mind, but you just know me long enough that, you know kind of the way I'm going to think. So we see Satan in that same sense. He's not a mind reader, okay, but he knows who we are and he knows our lives and he knows what thoughts he can interject that we would be most responsive to.
Gotcha. Okay. Our next question is from OLS 5395. What is a Squeaky, and would clergy, monks, or laity participate, and how is it established?
So a skiti is just like a it's a small cell of maybe an individual monk that lives there, or it may be a couple of monks, but it is always connected to a monastery. So no monk can be a monk unto himself. He always belongs to a monastery. But the abbot of that monastery may say, what I want you to do is I want you to spend time by yourself in a small skeet that may be separated from the actual monastery itself. It gives him time to be alone, to be prayerful, and a lot of times to maybe eliminate or to battle against some demons that he or she may have. So again, it's just a small area where they would go, and they would then typically be by themselves. What was the second part of that, though? What is the skiti and? Would Orthodox clergy typically? No, Orthodox clergy would not go there because it's very private. They would visit the monastery. Now, there are certain skitis that, like Elder Paisios, or that they would have gone off, and people will come and visit them for a blessing, or maybe for some prophetic wisdom or something like that, to maybe confess to them or something. But normally speaking, clergy do not, and laity do not visit these places.
I just want to let Diane know, yes, it was 83 in Florida today, but it actually hit the high 70s in Rochester.
It was really nice today.
It was, yeah, wasn't it beautiful today? It was gorgeous today, I know. So that's, I didn't want to rub it in for Wisconsin there, but we are doing pretty, but you know what's going to happen?
It's going to snow in a couple
It's
days.
going to,
Yeah,
it's
I'm
going to
sure.
snow
I'm
on
sure.
Easter. Yeah,
I'm sure.
this is what's going to happen. So.
Our next question is from Aaron88205. They say, hello, everyone. I hope you all are well. My first question today is, can you explain a bit what happens once an object has been blessed? And how has it become changed?
Well, I'm thinking, I'm thinking when you say, how is the object changed? The reason I'm being very cautious with that is, this is dangerous ground. This is what got the icons taken away from us in the first place. Because if we imbue too much into objects and they become objects of worship, we are crossing the line. Now, for example, even to the point of relics, okay, relics have been imbued with a grace, okay, and some relics, even biblically based, have been able to effect cures and miracles. But those relics are there so that we may know the glory of God. So when people say, is God real? There it is. The effect that has, the secondary effect is the curing. The primary effect is to show the glory of God, because it is not the object that is doing anything at all. I don't care how holy the saint is. It's not the saint, but it is the grace that has been imbued into that saint or that relic, all right? So the same thing, we have to be careful when we say, how is the object become changed? The object is still wood or metal or whatever it is, but having it blessed gives us now a reminder that the object is, I don't want to say this, that it's a reminder of the blessings that come from God. So if you've seen Raiders, not Raiders, Mummy, with
Brendan Fraser?
With Brendan Fraser. Did you ever see Mummy with Brendan Fraser?
I haven't, no.
So there's this really, really great scene. But one of Terry and I's favorite scene in the movie, all of a sudden the mummy comes up, right? The mummy comes up out of the grave, and he's coming up to one of the people, and he thinks that he's going to kill him. And so he holds up the cross, and he's like this, he's holding up the cross, and nothing happens because there's no power in the little teeny metal cross. It is what Jesus Christ has done for us that gives us that. So we just want to be careful. in terms of how we think and what has been given to it. So I would say not the object has not changed, but its ability through God's grace now to offer us blessings, I think, is what happens. But again, that blessing always comes then from its source, from the author of life, who is God.
Real quick, I was setting something up. I just wanted to make sure that we address Spiros's question about why are priests allowed to be right, left, or center?
I don't think.
Yeah, Spiro asks, why are priests allowed to be right, left, or center politically? Does that create confusion and inconsistency?
This is a really cool question.
That's
Because
why I saw it. I'm like, I was setting some stuff up, so I hope we address it because it's awesome.
so the role of the priest is exactly the role of the soldier in this sense. All right. When I had my military uniform on, the only thing I was allowed to say is that which was in accordance with the branch of military that I was associated with. Okay. I had no choice but to support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the current president, regardless of what my thoughts were for that person. This is exactly what it is in priesthood. When you stand on the solea and you wear vestments, the only thing, and that's the point of this whole, what we're doing here, the only thing you are allowed to say is that which the Orthodox Church proclaims. Now, when I go into the coffee hour and I sit down and you and me are having a discussion, now I'm going to tell you exactly what I think, but I'm not wearing vestments anywhere. I'm not speaking from the solea. So in that sense, it is exactly like it is in the military. You put the uniform on or the vestments on, the only thing that should be coming out of your mouth is that which is the doctrine of the church. And if they're right, left, or center, then they are absolutely incorrect. They're absolutely wrong. You're not to use the solea to now issue your viewpoint. We've been having problems with this because some of the priests now, on a most recent topic, are issuing their opinions on the vaccine. This is absolutely inappropriate. I mean, whatever guidance we receive from our metropolitan, from our hierarch, is what is to be said, because this is the church's position. Now, like I said, you want to go in a coffee hour and you want to tell me that you don't like vaccines or you like vaccines, that's fine. But
The vaccines in particular have gone a lot, very politicized. Everything with
yes,
this sickness, because I don't want to use the word because we might get banned,
right.
has become politicized, and it's unfortunate because I think there's real dialogue that needs to be done, but everybody's afraid to speak about it. But if you spoke about in the Soleil, there are also U.S. laws. I believe you can lose your nonprofits if you were to make this a political soapbox.
But that pales in comparison
Yeah.
with the fact that you are not speaking the truth of Christ.
Exactly.
So if you are not speaking what the church teaches, then it is inappropriate. I mean, it can't be clearer than that. And like I said, it was the same thing for the military. So we're not doing anything different from then what I would have done in the military in terms of saying what is right for the country and supporting the person or the executive branch and the people that are in government. I am duty bound to honor and to serve them, regardless of what my thoughts are.
All right. Okay. Our next question is also from Aaron 88205. This question is tied into last week's topic. They say, it was wonderful having the rabbi here, and I was wondering if you'll do something similar with a Muslim.
I would, yes, absolutely. I would love to do that. In fact, I'd like Baha'i. I'd like to have, I'd have to have like, Episcopal, Lutheran. So yes, I would like to
Jedi.
What's that?
Jedi.
Yes, I will. Klingon. I'll bring a Klingon on the show. But yes, that is my plan. That I would and I want to make sure that, as the last question indicated, that all of our discussion remains aligned with the particular faith and not of personal opinion. So that's the only thing we just want to be careful.
Yeah, I love that talk. That was one of my favorite shows that we've done, and I look forward to doing more of them, to be honest.
And he was fun. I mean, Rabbi Peter was absolutely fun, and we answered the most important question about why he didn't have a beard. So that was the most important question.
If anybody is in the Rochester area and would like to volunteer a suggestion for a guest host, please
Yes.
let us know in
Yeah,
the comments or
please let
email
us know.
us.
Okay. Our next question is from Diane Lukopoulos.
Hi, Diane.
She asks, what is the Orthodox opinion on self-flagellation? And how much should we suffer for God and our faith?
Well, that's why we do a show. This is our version of it.
Our version of self-flagellation. Okay, Diane, we are out of jam. Diane always sends these wonderful care packages, oranges, candies. So she sent us this homemade jam, which is like fabulous. We are out of jam, so now we don't have anything for breakfast to put on our toast. So not that I'm saying that she should make more jam, but I'm just putting it out there so that she knows. All right, so that so if we are talking about literal self-flagellation, then the answer is no. We do not support that in any way. Okay, we do not have a doctrine for that. We don't have a practice for that. We don't see any reason for that. If we are talking about metaphorical self-flagellation, we see that as damaging to the image and likeness of God. Because then what we're saying to ourselves as we are metaphorically beating ourselves is that we're no good, we're not worthy, we're evil. This is antithetical to the Orthodox idea of that we are created good by God in his image and his likeness. And that leads to depression and ultimately, and unfortunately, has led to suicide. So whether it is literal or metaphorical self-flagellation, we are absolutely in, what's the word I was looking for? I was trying to think of a fancy word for we don't believe in it. Now, that doesn't take away from the fact that we should be humble, okay? So that if you say to me, hey, Father Angelo, I saw how you talked to that person, just kind of remember what their situation is. Okay, I'm supposed to take that in a spirit of humility and say, you know what, maybe I just have to be just more careful how I deal with certain people. So in that sense, we don't see that as self-flagellation, but we see that as recognizing now a failure in ourselves, that we are not presenting ourselves worthy in the eyes of God or doing things to his glory. So does that kind of make sense in terms of like a line between the two?
That makes sense.
Well, a lot of self-flagellation, at least like the one where you whip yourself in the back with your arm. I mean, doesn't the Bible say that your body is his temple? Why would you defile it through
Right,
something?
for no good reason. And Christ didn't give us that example. He didn't get tortured by the Romans to say, okay, now I want you to do that. He suffered those sins for us. That is to some extent the expiation, the propitiation that we understand, that he's already done those things. So when you see these crazy videos of people that will select somebody as Christ and they'll whip him and then nail him to the cross, and this is not what Jesus Christ wanted us to do. He suffered that for us. So we certainly don't want to. That was not an example he gave for us.
Understood. Our next question is from Salvatore Russo. It says, hi, investigating orthodoxy. How does the Orthodox faith allow for use of creative gifts and talents of believers in their worship of God? I'm thinking of talents like music, dance, poetry, etc.
Well, the way they think about it is number one, you and you're a great example of this. Everything, the Orthodox Church is a grassroots church. We're not like top down where we say you do this, you do that. It is the priest's job to cultivate the talent that is around him. All right, but it is equally important that the person present that talent. Okay, you and Zoe, you started OCF. I didn't call you up and say, do OCF, or Orthodox Christian Fellowship college program. I didn't say do it. You did it. Then you came to us and you said, hey, would you, Father James, Father Angelo, would you mind being on our show? But it's your deal. You ran it and you used that as your talent. That's the first thing. And this is a lot of times what is not understood well in the parish is that it is the priest's job to cultivate the talent. He can go out and find the talent, but if you're hiding your talent under a bushel, then you are not now in the example of Christ, because he clearly says that. So it's your role to come and say, here is a talent I have. I'm a musician. I can play the organ. I can sing. Do you have something that you'd like me to do? And then we can find a role. Then it's the priest's job to say, okay, I have a talent. Now I need to use that talent. But you've got to tell me what that talent is.
I never thought about that. Okay. Our next question is again from Diane Lukopoulos. She asks, Father Angelo, the nuns told me that I need to wear a white hat when I get baptized. What kind of hat do they mean? Is it a scarf, or what does that mean?
It's a fedora.
Because I believe that she is she's coming to the Orthodox faith. She's going to be baptized at the monastery. Diane, I got to say, I am for it. And now I know when babies get baptized, you know how they have that cute little cap that the moms give them, But she is being baptized as an adult. I do not know what cap they're talking about. So you're gonna have to ask them that, because certainly you're not going to wear a little baby's cap. So I'm not sure which cap they're talking about there, because you're certainly not going to wear what we call the scoofy, which is kind of like the little round, that little dome thing that kind of sits on your head. You're not going to be wearing that, and they wouldn't say hat if they meant scarf. So it's something that may be particular to them, and I just, the nuns have been very gracious in terms of how they've been responding to you, and I think that's a simple question to ask them. But I am not aware of any adult hat that is worn.
But definitely let us know if it is truly a fedora.
Yes, yeah, and but also, no, seriously, let me know what that is, just so that I know that, because I'm not aware of that tradition, at least in a parish, in a community.
We have a question from Trench. The Orthodox 2020 census came out. Many are leaving the Greek Orthodox Church, and many churches are closing. Even priests and metropolitans are forced to quit. Many have left to a more traditional or altogether for many reasons. Many I ask say the issue is, but as you said, cannot be stated, which if that is the case, how can things be fixed when the issue cannot be talked about?
Well, okay, so if we're talking about the current situation that we're in, this really is not the issue at all. The issue with when we got to be blunt here. The issue with the Orthodox Church is that, and when I say young people, I'm talking about the demographic of anywhere from, let's say, 25 to 60. I'm talking about a large demographic. They do not feel that the church is relevant in today's society. Now, I'm not saying that I agree with that, and a big part of why we're doing this is so that people can find out that the Orthodox Church truly is. We are more relevant than, I'm going to put myself on a limb here, but we are more relevant than I'd say most Protestant churches, because sometimes they can become very fundamentalist, and we are not that at all. I mean, economia and compassion guides every decision that we make, but priests don't do a good job of showing that, and we need, and also what has been said is that we are not evangelical. I mean, we don't really reach out. We still are a very cultural church. Whether we're Russian cultural or Romanian or Greek cultural, we are still very insular to ourselves. So we don't do a good job of reaching out to the community in America, because there's nobody coming from Greece anymore, and very few people, maybe some Russia, but we're not really keeping up with the times. So we are becoming our own worst enemy here. And I'm not saying now, and the wrong thing to do is to jump on board to every societal change that's out there. If society says it's good, the church should say it's good. We absolutely do not believe that. We have an anchor. We have a line in the sand where we say, for example, gay marriage. We say we cannot have gay marriage. Now, that has not quelled, that has not stopped our numbers or anything like that. But what has stopped, or what people are starting to flee from the church, is that they don't see that the church is willing to engage in these conversations. We should speak about gay marriage. We should speak about abortion. We should speak about, we should speak about environmental issues. It doesn't mean that we have to have society's position, but we have to speak on it. And we have been seen as kind of laid back. We don't talk about anything. And and a younger generation sees that as weak, and so they're seeking out a church that will stand up for them. So these more fundamental Orthodox churches are taking that hard stand. Problem is going to be, as we've already seen this through history, is that they're going to go there thinking that this is what they want, but they're going to say, I like your stand on gay marriage. But then also they're going to find out that, I don't like your stand on abortion. I don't like your stand on who can receive Holy Communion. I don't like your stand on who can, on divorce. So I don't know if this is the church for me. So you'd be very careful here that just because they're flocking to those fundamental Orthodox churches, that doesn't mean they're going to stay there, So let's see how the numbers fall out. What we need to be a church that is relevant in today's society, and that and doesn't change with society, but at least presents our vantage points. Those people that say we are the unchanging church since the schism they don't even know what they're talking about. We have changed very, very much, since then. We no longer issue a 10-year penance on divorce, that if you divorce somebody, you must now be away from the cup for penance for 10 years. Okay, we are a changing church, but we just need to do a little bit better job. Sorry, I kind of went off on that. I saw Demos giving me the all, but that's like Holy Communion. This is a passionate subject for me because we have fallen down on the job here.
Since we did ask for suggestions for guests, Trench does. He goes on and actually asks, if possible, if we can have a more conservative Orthodox priest on as well, as a suggestion. We'll take that under advisement. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Our next question is again from Diane. Should you automatically trust a man because he is clergy? She says this isn't about you. If you have great piety, could it be used to hurt you, or can it be used against you?
Okay, so the answer to the first question is no. You don't trust anybody, just because of their position, all right? This is how we have gotten ourselves into, us being the Orthodox and Catholic Church, this is how we've gotten ourselves into the position of scandal, right? Because we have seen that certain people in a position of authority will abuse that authority in a very negative way. So the answer to the first question is absolutely not. Just because they are clergy, quick story here that's funny, and I excuse me, and I tell this to people, and the Greeks are a wonderful example of this. The priest comes in, and in a Greek church, in a Greek church, now I mean a Greek church where there are Greeks, they will not confess anything to the new priest because they don't know what this priest is going to do. Is he like from the old country and he's going to tell his neighbors down at the Cafanillo when he has a futsipero there, so they will tell you nothing. And then what they'll do is right around the second year, they'll tell you little small things to find out if you're going to say something. And then if they hear it back, it's meaningless, but if they hear it back, they know they can't trust you. If they don't hear anything, then you're getting better. By the fifth year, then they will start slowly now to come to communion, to come to confession. So the Greeks really know how to do it because, it's not that they don't trust, but what was Reagan's thing? Trust but verify?
Regardless of who said it, that's the right way to go.
Right. Trust
Always
but verify.
trust but verify.
But was there a second part to Diane's question there? Or it was a continuation, I think.
Piety. Great
Yes. If you have great piety, could it be used against you or to hurt you?
Yes. Now, because what happens is piety becomes pride. Look how pious I am. That is clearly the publican and the Pharisee, right? That is exactly what the Pharisee said. He said, look at me. I'm not like that guy. I pray twice a day. I give, and I'm not like that thieving, murdering, drunken tax collector. That's where piety, if uncontrolled, unchecked, can get you. So this is why when St. John Climacus wrote, if you think that you have climbed the ladder, then go back down to the first step. So absolutely, piety can, unchecked piety can get you into big problems, trouble.
Okay, we have another question from VDMA LCMS.
Do we know what that stands for?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
What have you found to be the easiest way to defend the Blessed Virgin St. Mary's perpetual virginity? I'm guessing that's asking if I'm correct that someone comes to you arguing that the Virgin Mary wasn't actually a virgin.
Okay.
It depends if it's before or after, because that's been the debate. Was Virgin Mary a virgin after she gave birth to Jesus? Was she a lifelong virgin?
Okay. I mean, it is a tradition of the Orthodox Church that she was, but does it destroy my Christianity if she's not? No. I mean, okay. Because it does say, the gospel does say that, that she was a virgin until blah blah blah, until she conceived of of God in her womb. Okay, it can be interpreted through the Greek that there was that she did have relations. Would it make sense? Not in my mind. It wouldn't make sense. She has given birth to the Savior of the world, and now what? Joseph says, okay, let's see what we can do next. I mean, come on. It makes no sense. But I am not going to go out on a limb. I shouldn't say it that way. But I'm not going to make this huge argument about her virginity. Because what that's going to lead me into now is that if she wasn't virgin after, does that now take away from what she has done for the world? I mean, is that how we're going to see her as a woman? Is we're going to say now that it is improper for her to have a child? I mean, we're taking away what we feel to be is one of her roles as a mother. Okay, who's to say that she couldn't? So what I guess what I'm saying is that there's no point for me to get into a hard discussion to prove absolutely that she was a virgin. If you want to believe that she wasn't a virgin, glory to God, off you go. It does not in any way destroy our Christian faith. As St. Paul was very clear, the only thing that makes Christianity a folly is if the empty tomb was not the empty tomb. That's the only thing. Everything else,
We have a clarification. Diane actually meant, if you have great faith, could it be used to hurt you? In regards to the question about automatically trusting
Oh, yeah,
clergy.
yes. And absolutely, this is exactly how you will suffer. Your faith, having great faith, will put you into a position where you will suffer because people will make fun of, how can you believe in, come on, I mean, what are you, like 5 years old that you believe in myths like God? You will be ridiculed for your faith, and a very passionate faith, you will be ridiculed for that. All right. But and as the saints were, even to the point of a lot of the saints were tortured for that, right? And I mean, fathers killing their own daughters for having that strong faith. So yes, it can be used against you, absolutely. But what you do is, as the example of the martyrs, you hold on to that faith because you know that your faith is true. But Jesus has told us that yes, you will suffer for your faith.
I've seen it already with the younger generation, like people of my age. To be religious is a little bit taboo. Like you're not supposed to talk about it that much. And if you say you are, people kind of have that idea of you of like, are you sure?
Yeah.
What's really going on? Like, so
Well,
I've felt that taboo.
Okay, so yeah, so again, it's not on the order of torture, but certainly you are feeling a pressure for having your faith, and especially if you show that, demonstrate that faith. I mean, if we're in a restaurant, I make it a point. If I'm with a group, I make it a point. We do our cross, we say our prayers. Because he who is ashamed of me in this generation, so will I be ashamed of him in front of my Father. So I hear those words, but you do get that sideward glance from people that go, look at the Jesus freaks over there. That. So you're right. You already know it.
We have a follow-up from Trench. This was about question we talked about earlier. So since the devil can't read thoughts, then I assume the same applies to saints, angels, Christ, God, ?
Saints, yes. God, no. I mean,
Right.
God, he says, God knows us, right, from before. So God knows our thoughts. He clearly does. And that really is our saving grace, because he knows what is in the thoughts of every man. So you may see, or I may see somebody, or Demos may see somebody as they may see somebody as evil or greedy or selfish, but it's only God who knows what's in that person's mind. You've probably encountered that. You had an opinion about this person, and it wasn't necessarily the best opinion, right? Okay, but then over time, you kind of got to know about that person's life, and then all of a sudden you were like, oh yeah, okay, now I kind of get it. Now I understand it. I mean, he still shouldn't have done that, but I understand now why he did it. God is that he knows the thoughts of men, and
What about angels?
Angels are created beings. So because Satan is an angel, right? So they fall into the same category.
All right.
They can know us like our guardian angels, but that's reading thoughts is not a grace that we believe that God has given them.
I have a question. What is a guardian angel?
So it's an angel that has been appointed over you to guard and protect you and to offer you conscience. And what a lot of people don't know is that at the time of baptism, when we're in the back of the church, and it says, "And may a radiant guardian angel be sent down upon this child to protect and to preserve them." So you're given that guardian angel at the baptism service. And that's what the purpose of that angel is. It's an angel that is specifically assigned to protect and to guide you and to be a conscience for you. I mean, we do say that the Holy Spirit guides you, but we do believe that a guardian angel also is, quote unquote, for lack of a better term, assigned to you.
Okay. Our next question is from Spiro Sinisteresis. He asks,
Ooh, nice. See, nice Greek accent. Did you hear that Greek accent in there? Oh, yeah.
my dad is going to be proud of me.
All right, very nice.
I've heard that it's believed that people who have things they don't need are stealing from the poor. Your thoughts on this? If this is the case, there are many who are guilty of this in our society.
Oh yeah, and I'm the first. I'll be the first to admit what Spiro is saying is absolutely correct. I've got 6 pairs of shoes, 2 of which I have never worn before, sitting in my closet. He's absolutely right. What are you doing with those shoes? If you're not going to wear them, why aren't you giving them to somebody? Jesus says, if he asks for your cloak, then if he asks for your shirt, then you give him the shirt and the cloak and your shoes. Okay, so this is it is a sinful act. I mean, if you have more than you need, you should be giving of that. All right. Now, that's not to say, only have 1 roll of toilet paper, because you need a couple of extra rolls of toilet paper. All right.
Especially this time last year.
Absolutely. Okay. But, so I'm not going to say that if you've got, you should only have 1 pair of shoes. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is that if you're going through your closet and you've got 6 jackets that you're never going to wear again, okay, if your first thought is, let me put this on eBay, see how much money I can make, the Orthodox would probably say, you know what? Why don't you just donate that to a lending closet, or why don't you donate that to Catholic Charities, or somewhere else? If you're going shopping, and this is what I had wanted to do, been wanting to do for Lent. You go shopping and you pick up groceries, right? Okay, buy an extra turkey or buy an extra ham or another gallon of milk and drop that off at Catholic Charities or one of the food banks. Because you know what? I've got enough money that I can buy 2 gallons of milk when I really need 1. This is what we need to do more of. And Spiro is absolutely right that yes, it borders on a sinful act if you are stocking up things that you need. Again, the Bible is very clear on that, right? The guy's building the barns, right? He's got enough grain for 1 barn, right? And then he says, oh, soul, what should I do? I'm going to build another barn so I can store it. And then what does Jesus say? This very night, your soul will be required of you. You never know when it's going to be your last day here. So he's got a good point there.
We also have a comment from Father Constantine Bodian.
Bodine. Oh,
There it
Bodine.
is.
Oh, a classmate. All right.
He says, a blessing makes something the ideal image of what it was intended to be. So he goes, i.e. holy water. So
Okay.
that's just a clarification of what we talked about.
Good job, Father Bodine. So we've had many. We're like Bill and Ted. We have had many excellent adventures together. So
In a cramped elevator? In a cramped phone booth, I mean?
no, in a Romanian deli.
Oh.
He'll know what we're talking about here. So say that one more time. I like that. Can you, if you can, did you?
I will find it.
Oh, sorry about that. But very, very well said. Very well said.
A blessing makes something the ideal image of what it was intended to be.
Mm-hmm. He was always our theologian.
I'm finding the next one.
Terry says you're going to have to donate your whiskey.
Yeah. Okay. Well.
Okay. We have a question from Medieval Guitar. They say, "Good evening, all. Some people cross themselves when reciting the creed at in the Holy Spirit and in one holy Catholic and Apostolic Church. What is behind that practice, and is it for all?"
Again, there's no laws, quote unquote, that say here's what you have to do it. Okay, anytime that the triune God is stated, Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Okay, we do the sign of the cross. That's why we have it in the first one. What was what did you say?
In the Holy Spirit, and then in one holy Catholic and Apostolic Church.
The reason we say it in the second one is because this is what our hope is. This is the return to what Christ wanted. He wanted and established one holy Catholic and Apostolic Church. We have destroyed that because there's the Catholic Church, there's the Protestant Church, and there's the Orthodox Church. So we cross ourselves at that point because this is the goal. This is the reunification that we look towards, so that we have what is in the creed is one holy Catholic and Apostolic Church. One holy, universal, and apostolic means evangelical.
Scrolling up, Spiro had a correction to his earlier question. He meant, can priests be religiously right, left, or center, such as monastic to progressive?
So certainly, depending upon their roles, they can be. I don't want to say. I don't want to say left or right. What I want to say is I want to use Orthodox terms, the terms of akrivia and economia. Okay, akrivia is something that is harsh and very pointed. So akrivia says you cannot be divorced. There's only one marriage. Okay, the church, as Jesus Christ has said, except in the case of adultery, you don't get divorced. There's if you now marry another, you're committing adultery. That's akrivia. Okay. Now there are people that do not get divorced just because of adultery. All right. So the church has instituted economia, which is compassion, mercy. And they have said now there's not just one rule for divorce and one rule for a divorce. There are now 7 reasons why a divorce will be considered valid. These were not said by Jesus Christ. Jesus said only one. But the Orthodox Church, through her mercy and compassion, has extended that list out to 7. So certain priests can practice a very akrivia form of priesthood, that they are very severe. Now, and then there are other priests that can practice a much more economia version of their priesthood. Are either one of them wrong? No, because in the eyes of the church, both of them now are performing according to the laws of the church or the canons of the church. So you can't see that the priest who is harsh, akrivia, is better or worse than the priest who is compassionate. What it will do, though, is there are certain people that will gravitate to this priest, the akrivia priest, and certain people that will gravitate to the priest of economia. That does not make either priest a bad priest. Doesn't make them a good priest either. Just makes them a priest of the church, practicing the way that they feel is appropriate for their parish.
Understood. Okay, we have a couple questions about communion. So from Kimberly Vito, we have, how do you do communion in Orthodoxy?
Well, if you would have asked me this question like last year, I would have given you one answer. Communion is done via the spoon. Okay, in the Catholic Church, as most of you know, the body and the blood are given in what we call different species, meaning that you are offered the wafer, which is the body, and then there is a cup, and then you drink from the cup. In the Orthodox Church, only now clergy will receive in that way under separate species. What the Orthodox faith has done for most of her history has taken the body, placed it into the cup, and then distributed both of those elements to you on a spoon. Now, originally we did do it, in the early church, we did it the way that the Catholic Church does it now. Then we went to tongs. We actually picked up a tong and we put that in your mouth. And then the final act was the communion spoon, all right? So this is the way that communion is distributed in Orthodox Church. Now, with the pandemic and all of that, there are churches that are distributing communion in different ways using the spoon. They'll use multiple spoons. Some churches will still use just one spoon. Other churches will have a sterilization process between spoons. But in the end, it's still being administered via the spoon, and the species are being mixed. They are not being distributed in any church that I know of, one to one.
We do have a video which I shared in the comments in the chat, Kimberly, to how is communion prepared, which goes into visual detail.
Into visually how that's done. Was there a part of that question then that I did? Was there a part 2 to that?
Not that I saw.
Okay.
No.
All right.
Okay.
Why?
Okay. Y asks, can I become Orthodox but not believe in praying to saints?
Okay, so here we have akrivia and economia. Okay. Well, actually, he said pray to saints. We don't pray to saints. So Orthodox do not pray to saints. So you don't have to worry about that. Now, if what you're saying is, I don't believe in the intercessory power of saints, then we'd have to have that discussion. So I'm not saying, bad, but you have asked people to pray for you. I mean, when you've been sick, when a friend or a family member's been sick, and people have found out, you've said, hey, would you pray for my whoever, right? You've done that before. Okay. So, and I've done that before. Baptists do that. All Protestants do that. They form a prayer chain. All right. All that we're saying as Orthodox is we are extending that prayer chain to the church militant, to those who have passed away, who have deceased, all right? Because we still believe that they are alive and that they can intercede for us and add their voice to our prayers, okay? So as you are becoming Orthodox, we'd have to have that discussion and ask, why do you feel that a saint could not offer an intercessory prayer to God the Father or to Jesus? It doesn't in any way say that you can't pray directly to Jesus, which is probably what you do, right? Oh, Jesus, please, I want you to save my whoever it is, okay? Make them better. Help me pass a test, whatever that is. You pray directly to Jesus. But adding prayers from both the living and in the Orthodox, the deceased is part of who we are as Orthodox. So I'm not saying you couldn't become Orthodox, but we would really want to extract from you what problem you'd have. Like I said, if your problem is you don't want to pray to the saints, then we're right on board with you on that. We don't want to pray to the saints either.
We have a question from Y about communion again. The church believes the Holy Eucharist is actually Christ himself. My question is, would it be disrespectful or sinful to touch my mouth or tongue with dirty hands? I'm not baptized, but I can't stop washing my hands because I'm afraid to be disrespectful to Christ or God.
Wait a minute, I'm not, you said he's not what?
Baptized.
He's not baptized.
Well, how is he receiving communion?
It's a good question.
I mean, if you're not baptized, and now, I mean, if he's of one of the higher Protestant faiths, like Lutheran, Episcopal, or Anglican, that has communion as we see it, I mean, not exactly as we see it, but they have communion, that's one thing, and he's not receiving the church, but I don't know how you can be receiving communion in the Orthodox Church if you are not baptized. Now,
It could be Catholic, I guess, or it refers to it as Holy Eucharist.
Holy Eucharist, okay. Now, what I can tell you as far now the commentary on the dirty hands, what I can tell you is that the number one thing that, or the first thing that the priest does when he comes in before he actually serves before the altar is he goes and he washes his hands. There's a prayer that is said, I wash my hands. When you're under pressure. I wash my hands in this, O Lord, as I stand before your holy altar and declare the wonder of your praise. So I physically have to wash my hands because it is inappropriate to go and touch the holy vessels and to physically touch the body of Christ with now soiled and contaminated hands. One, it's not hygienic, number one. And number two, it's disrespectful. You're absolutely right. So what I would say is one of the things that you should do before you should come to church, period, any church, is you should have clean hands. You should wash your hands before you come to church. And then it won't be a problem.
We have a question from Diane. Who is your favorite saint?
So I should know this like right off the top of my head.
The Demosthenes dude was pretty cool.
The Demosthenes dude was pretty good. Well, the patron saint of my family's island of Chios is Aia Margella, and again, and she was now a saint who of Chios who suffered at the hands of her father, because her father actually was lusting after her and she refused his advances. He was pagan, but she grew up with her mom who was Christian, and she ended up dying at the hand of her father. So she's a wonderful example of the fact that she did show her faith to the point of death. I mean, he clearly was going to kill her. Now, in terms of my favorite along those lines, I'd have to say then also Mary Magdalene. Why? Because we just did a video on this, and Mary Magdalene was equal to the apostles. I don't believe that she is the prostitute that they have made her out to be. I prefer to think of her as Mary of Magdala as an area, and maybe there was, but she was the one when the apostles fled. She was the one among the other women who had the courage to stand by Jesus at his cross, and she was the one who announced that Christ was coming to the apostles. She was the one who told them, hey, I have met Christ and I have met the risen Christ. So, I mean, how can you not have that as one of your favorite saint?
So for the sake of time, and once again, we're going to go on slightly longer just because we were late. Let's get to some of the questions. We have a lot of great questions tonight. I'm going to be keeping some of these for next week. So if some of you are not addressed tonight, I'm going to be asking these questions next week, so no worries. But let's try to address some people that haven't had the opportunity to ask a question yet.
We have from Elijah Charon. I'm Greek Orthodox, learning the history of the church. There was so much lost in the Turkish occupation of Greece. My question is, how come the Roman Catholic Church never helped the Greek Christians?
There's a good political question. But I do want to, just before I answer that, I do want to focus a little bit on, he says a lot was lost, right, during the occupation. As much was lost during that time, what a lot of people don't necessarily realize is that many things were preserved for us. And what I mean by that is that when Rome collapsed, there was no government. I mean, everybody just ran out of Dodge. All right. What that left was it left the Catholic Church holding the state bag and the church bag. So they had to run both of those. Okay. So so they had to handle administrative matters, they had to handle theological matters, legal matters. So they were kind of intertwined in everything. All right, that formed, and being influenced by the scholastic period, they became somewhat of a much more rigid church, and became very doctrinally focused, on codifications and things like that. What the Ottoman occupation did for us is that the Ottomans said, the state is none of your business. That's our business. And it left the church the opportunity to focus on now the theological, the doctrinal, and the dogmatic. So we were free to, and now I know in later years there was issues in that, but the sultans of that time were very, very compassionate in allowing us to celebrate our faith. So they didn't force us to become Muslims. What they said was, don't overthrow the government, keep out of state affairs. And that left us able now to develop doctrinally and dogmatically as a church. So we were offered that protection. Again, I'm not trying to minimize what they did. There was executions, there was tortures and everything like that. But it did give us a chance to focus on the church itself, whereas the Roman church, or the Catholic church, did not have that ability. So I wanted to address that loss. Now, getting back to what they said, read the last part for me again.
The last part.
Yeah, because some was lost, and then what happened after that?
How come the Roman Catholic Church never helped Greek Christians?
Yeah, okay. So at this point, there was a little bit of tit for tat, is because there was a time when the Byzantine Empire was also supposed to help now the Roman Catholic Church, and we balked, and so we weren't offering the support. All right. At the same time now, what happens is, or I'm sorry, not the same time, but now afterwards, what happens is, as we see the collapse of the Byzantine Empire, those emperors now call for the Roman Catholic Church to come over, and we had been plundered by our riches, so we weren't able to afford it. And at the same time, the Roman Catholic Church said, this makes us then the empire. So the fall of the Byzantine Empire, this now comes to us, so it becomes not a theological question, but it becomes much more of a political question, because there was that power struggle between the East and the West, and now with the collapse of the Byzantine Empire, now Rome comes back into its own, and now you have the medieval time, and not only that, but then they wanted to sack Constantinople, so they were not about to help us, because that led to then the Crusades.
1204, Fourth Crusade by Venice. The Recchi or Recchi reports makes a comment to Elijah in the same vein.
Yeah. So they were looking to kind of plunder the booty, so to speak, and so there's political reasons there.
We also have from the Reese report on this question. Roman Byzantium, now Moscow, have an ongoing conflict. See the sacking of Constantinople in 1204, the Fourth Crusade by Venice, and the invasion of Montenegro by Venice in the Middle Ages.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yeah. Some of those that Pope Francis now is starting to give back to the church. So we're receiving now relics back from the Roman Catholic Church. So that's a very positive step.
Real quick, Bacchus, how to follow a prayer rule without being baptized in the Orthodox Church? How do you follow a prayer rule without being baptized?
I mean, the prayer rule is glorifying God. You don't need to be Orthodox to do that. All right. It comes from the Orthodox faith, but you don't need to be Orthodox to do that. So I would say follow the prayer rule, okay, and then give yourself the time to explore the Orthodox faith. So that prayer rule can lead you to many of the prayers and some of the documents that are in the Philokolia. Did I pronounce that right? Terry will come in on this. The Filioque. So no, that's something else. Filioque is not that. The I just went.
The Philoptochos.
Not the Philoptochos, but the so.
Well, while you're looking that up, I was having a back and forth conversation with former President John F. Kennedy.
Oh, okay.
He was trying to ask a question that was getting blocked by YouTube for some reason. That happens for if some of your questions don't show up. Sometimes there are certain keywords that YouTube/Google they don't like. We don't delete good questions, and I thought this was a good question.
Okay.
Basically, if how do we know which Old Testament laws that we still need to follow? How do we know which ones are still applicable and which ones are not? And he referenced Sodom and Gomorrah as an example.
Well, we certainly don't want to follow the example of Sodom and Gomorrah.
Unless you want more salt.
Now, philokalia. So start with your prayer rule, right? But then also then explore the philokalia, because there will be some great prayers in that, and then also some wonderful writings from some of the great spiritual fathers and writers of the Orthodox faith. So I just want to close that question out. All right, now, so the next one.
Oh, it was how do we know which rules from the Old Testament that we still need to follow? That's the and he had to break up the question into pieces just to ask it. So I'm hoping I got it right.
All right, so well, what is probably the most applicable part of the Hebrew Scripture for us? When everybody thinks of Hebrew Scripture, they think of the 10.
Like a Ten Commandments.
There we go. So that's a place to start. Is we still follow the 10 Commandments? All right, but when we talk about dietary restrictions, okay, when we talk about now the 621 laws that are followed, those typically we do not follow. So I would have to say that from a New Testament perspective, it is much more the spirit of the law than the actual law. We as Christians are not looking for a legalistic explanation of what it is that we do. We are looking to see, is it something now that is reflected in Christ? So if it says, that you will not boil a kid in its mother's milk, all right, then we don't see this as reflecting now in the body of Christ or something that would affect us. We see that more as a legalistic, so we would not then follow that. The first council of Jerusalem that showed up between the apostles with St. James, who led it in the book of Acts, had just this discussion and said, there was people that said, no, Peter, we should follow the Jewish rules. And then there was James that said no, so there was this ongoing debate, and the rule finally was that those legalistic aspects, like circumcision and like the 621 laws, would not be observed, but things that identified the spirit of who we are, like the 10 Commandments, would be observed.
I'm not sure what it is.
I'd like to finish with why, because he's having a bit of an issue with this topic. So I thought it would be nice to finish with this. 4 parts, so bear with me.
Okay.
But Father, Orthodoxy literally calls Saint Mary their hope, refugee, etc., and say her to save them. They say, "We cry unto you, O Saint, quote unquote, someone." I'm not comfortable with that. I'm not baptized, but I know one day I will receive the Holy Eucharist in the future, so I want to be careful. I should have said I'm not even baptized, yet I can't stop washing my hands. This really makes me worried. I literally can't stop washing my hands, and it affects me. I'm talking about my daily life. I wash my hands too much during the day. What can we do to help Mr. Y?
Well, okay. So the only requirement is that our hands are clean before we receive communion. That's Now, I don't want to say that. I mean, over washing your hands it can be a paranoia of today, right? We've got many people that are consistently now washing their hands, putting, So if we're not talking about a paranoia or what
Compulsion.
come on, thank you. Right. Always talk to the medical student, right? To get, as long as we're not talking about a compulsion here, the only thing that the church requires us to do is asks that not only do we be spiritually clean, but that we also be externally clean. And that means that our hands, because we are receiving something holy. But it doesn't mean that every moment of my life, my hands have to be clean. So what I would say is, as I mentioned, before we come to church, we wash our hands if we feel that we've done something. Driving your car, holding onto the steering wheel does not make your hands dirty. Okay, digging in the dirt before you come here because you're planting flowers. Okay, makes your hands dirty. Yes, I would wash them. All right, helping your kids in the car doesn't make your hands dirty.
Depends on the kids.
If the baby vomits on you, yes, wash your hands. So aside from a compulsive act, I would not stress about washing your hands. I would just say, when you come to church, just make sure that your hands are clean, just that one time.
Calista, maybe you can answer this. Is there, based on your knowledge, is there a danger in overwashing your hands? I mean, could you actually damage your hands by doing that?
Oh, I have no idea.
I have heard that there are certain oils and things that protect our body, and if we consistently wash those off, then it can be harmful to us medically.
On top of that, we have to get used to germs. If we eradicate all germs, we destroy our immune system. I think this might be a case where you might be overthinking it a little bit. My experience with religion doesn't mean that God requires you to not live your life if you're worried about such things. Diane suggests maybe ending with a prayer.
Okay.
Do you have a prayer for such an occasion, Father?
The Orthodox have a prayer for every occasion. It's not that we never. Oh, wait a minute! I know just the prayer. I'll be right back.
And while he's gone, Calista, entertain us.
Me? Oh, I did want to, if you have any questions about like the medical repercussions of washing your hands too much, definitely reach out to a medical professional. We do not have any authority on any medical platform to give you medical advice. So for that, go to a doctor. But
The biggest authority that Father Angelo has outside of the Christian faith is whiskey. So, but which is also kills germs. So
yes, it is.
There we go.
So before I say the ending prayer again, Calista, thank you very, very much. Hopefully this was an enjoyable evening.
It's he does clarify, or she. It's not about the virus or germs. It's a true fear about being disrespectful to God.
And so if it is just that, then again, before you enter church, make sure that your hands are clean. Other than that, you do not need to overly wash your hands. Once and if your hands are clean when you come and you receive communion, right? And now you want to wipe just a little bit off. This is why we have the communion cloth, or this is why we have the paper, because even regardless of how clean our hands are, we don't typically wipe our mouth with our hands. We have a communion cloth there, or we have a napkin, I think, now is what we're using, and we just dab with that. So your hands really should never be touching communion anyway. What was I going to say?
The prayer for.
So, do you think we could have you back again?
maybe.
Maybe. All right. Okay. Did you seem kind of? Did you kind of settle into it? It kind of got relaxed with it and everything like that.
I'm starting to learn the ropes.
Starting to learn starting to learn the word. So the next time we have you, you're gonna be joking. It's gonna be fun.
We were talking about a lot about reading minds tonight,
Right.
and she read my mind a couple of times. So maybe it's God and Callista.
All right.
I wouldn't go that far.
All right. So because again, this is educational. I think this is one of the best educational prayers. Your test question for next Thursday will be, when do I read this prayer during the liturgy? Okay. So, shine in our hearts, O loving Master, the pure light of your divine knowledge. Open up the eyes of our minds that we may comprehend the message of your gospel. Instill also in us a reverence for your blessed commandments, that by putting down all body desires we may pursue a spiritual way of life, both thinking and doing only those things that are pleasing to you. For you are the light of our souls and bodies, O Christ our God, as we give you glory as to your Father, who is from everlasting, and your all holy, good, and life-giving Spirit, now and forever, to the ages of ages. Amen. Right. So again, thank you everybody for joining us. Thanks also for the comments again about who we should be bringing on as a guest host. I'm going to start examining those. We've got some really interesting guests that I'm thinking of bringing on. Again, thank you for hosting.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And so we'll see all of you either
Tomorrow.
Yes, tomorrow for the salutation services, the fourth salutation service. So everybody have a great night. Kalis Arakosti, and we'll talk to you soon.